I'm Giuliano Hazan, and I'm going to be making homemade egg pasta with you today. I'm going to be making the kind of pasta that we make in Emilia-Romagna, which is just with eggs and flour. In other parts of Italy, they make it using a slightly different recipe, but Emilia-Romagna is where I grew up, and this is how I learned it. Pasta hates cold temperatures, so that's why I'm using a wood counter. You don't want to do it on granite like this or stainless steel. You want to use a surface that is not inherently cold. And then we're going to put some flour on our counter. This is about 2 1/4 cups of flour. I am making 3 eggs of pasta here today. And a good rule of thumb is to start with approximately 3/4 of a cup of flour. And this is all-purpose unbleached flour to 1 egg. So 3 eggs is 2 1/4 cups. So you see, I'm creating a space inside here that I can mix the eggs in. You want to make a well that is really spacious enough so that the eggs won't run over. And then when you're ready, you break your eggs inside like this. And the eggs should not be straight from the refrigerator because remember, pasta hates cold temperatures and we don't want to put the shells in there. Just the eggs like this. And then we're going to mix up the eggs a little bit like making an omelet, okay? So you can use a fork and just zoom in so you can see how I'm doing. There you go. Just mix them up so that the yolks and the whites are mixed together. And then we're ready to start incorporating a little bit of flour. And I want to bring the flour in from the sides like this. And I use the fork to do that. And I don't want to break the wall because I don't want the eggs to run out. And then you just keep on mixing with your fork like this. And you keep on doing this until you get to a consistency that's firm enough so that you can just work it with your hands. And then we'll be getting rid of the fork. Now you see there's no exact proportion of flour to eggs because sometimes eggs are a little bit bigger, sometimes it's a little bit more humid or more dry in the air. When this mixture is thick enough and we get rid of our fork, you see I squeeze it out with my fingers like this. I'm going to push some of the flour aside. Okay, we can always add some more, but we can't take it out. And this is a little bit more probably than we're going to need. And then I'm ready to bring the flour in like this with my hands. This isn't a scary step. It's thick enough now that it's not going to be too runny. And you just keep on pushing it in towards the center with your hands, like this. And this is really to create a dough and see whether we have the right proportion of flour. The kneading part is actually going to be the next step. This step is really just about mixing the flour with the eggs and seeing whether it's the right amount. Now, once you get the hang of it, you'll get a feeling, by how firm or how soft it is. But the first few times, one good way to tell whether you have enough flour or not is to see how sticky it is. When the dough is sticky, then it means it needs a little bit more flour. And you can use a scraper, so you can scrape the bits at the bottom of the board and work them into the dough like this. And one good way to tell whether it's too sticky or not is to clean off a finger and just stick it inside like this. And it should come out feeling a little bit moist, but not too sticky. So I think I've got more or less, I think this is the right amount now. So what I'm going to do now is temporarily put the dough inside some plastic wrap. Because you see, you don't want to leave the dough out even just a little bit because it'll dry out. So put it in some plastic wrap like this. And set it aside for a moment. And in the meantime, I'm going to clean out my board with a scraper. See, I don't want any of those dried bits getting stuck into the dough. I want a nice clean counter. And then I'm going to clean my hands as well so I don't have any dried bits here. So I'll be right back. Now I have my hands clean and we're ready to knead the dough. So when you knead, what you want to keep in mind is that you want to stretch the dough. You don't want to just compress it. So we're not going to just go press down like this. we're going to press down and out like this. So this is the movement that we're going to do. We're going to hold the dough with the fingers of one hand. We're going to fold it over with the fingers of the other hand, like this. And then, using the heel of your palm, you see the bottom part right here, not the middle, but the bottom part. You place the heel of your palm behind the dough, and then you're going to press into the dough as you're rolling it on the counter, up until your palm gets to where it's about halfway into the dough. And then pull the dough back again, folding over again. Repeat the same thing, put the heel of your palm behind it, push down and away from you. And then we're going to turn the dough 90 degrees and repeat again. Fold over like this, put the heel of your palm behind the dough, press down and out like this. So you do it twice in the same direction, and then you turn the dough and repeat once and twice, and turn and once and twice, just like this. Now what I do is actually I alternate hands. I do one like this, and then my right, and then my left, and my right, and my left. Now, do you see how the dough is kind of rolling on the counter? See, it's not just staying still. If I press down, the dough doesn't move. But if I press down and away from me, it kind of rolls on the counter. Now, as you're doing this, if you feel that the dough is really too sticky on your hands, or it's sticking to the board, then it just means that it needs a little bit more flour. So you just sprinkle a little bit of flour. I'll show you just a little bit here. Sprinkle a little bit of flour on the counter, and just keep on kneading on top of the flour, and the flour will get incorporated into the dough. Now, the reason we want to try and get the right amount of flour in as soon as possible, as early on as possible, is because the farther along you are, the longer it takes for the flour to get incorporated into the dough. Now, you don't need to knead forever. Once you've gotten the right proportion of flour in, 3 to 5 minutes is plenty of time to knead the dough. You really only need to knead it as long as it takes for the dough to become nice and homogeneous and smooth, so you don't feel any flour on the surface anymore. You don't feel any stickiness from the eggs inside either. And you just keep on going like this, alternating one hand. Okay, here we are. I've finished kneading now. You see, it's nice and smooth and homogeneous. So now I'm going to put it back into my plastic wrap. And the dough needs to rest for a little bit. And what happens while it rests is that the gluten in the flour relaxes. And what that does is that it allows us to stretch the dough when we roll it out. Otherwise, it'd be like the rubber band effect where it would come back. So we're going to let it rest for about 20 minutes, but you can even leave it on the counter for 2 or 3 hours and it's fine. Just don't put it in the refrigerator because remember, pasta hates the cold.